Find a customer, come up with something, find a customer, sell it to them, knock the cover off the ball, make it so that they have such a phenomenal experience, give it to them at a very good price, increase the price if you can figure out how to create more value.
That brought me a lot of resilience to move to a country that I didn't know the language. I didn't know, what was next. The business, like saving lives every time we do it, for me, it's like there's nothing like it.
I don't show up in the world wanting to be successful. I show up in the world with this never-ending drive to stay true to self.
Hey, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to ask a massive favor of you guys. At the moment, we're putting a big priority on growing our YouTube channel. So if you aren't already subscribed to us there, if you could head over to YouTube, type in the Quest for Success podcast, or just click the link down in the show notes below, head over to our channel and subscribe to us there. You'll get access to all of our video interviews that we do with our guests. And it will do us a massive favor because it will help us grow the show, which means we can get on bigger and better guests for you guys. And with that, back to the episode. All right, welcome back to the Quest for Success podcast, and thanks so much for tuning in once again. Today, we have special guests all the way from Virginia. We have Mike and Melissa Stoltzfus, who are the owners of Dynamic Aviation. We're super keen to sit down and have a chat with them today.
And I'm really, really excited. Melissa is one of my very close friends. I met her at the Harvard Business School, and Mike done OPM twice. So we want to explore and understand a bit more, and really thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having us. It's such a pleasure.
It is an honor, and we're delighted to be together.
So this whole podcast is about success, right? And so we really need to understand something quite fundamental, and that is, what does success mean to each of you?
You go first.
I think success at the end of the day, if you take everything away, money, job titles, and all of that, will be your kids, your husband, your parents living next to you. And at the end of the day, I think if you move all of that, and it's what is left, and be exactly what you feel like God has placed you in your life. I feel like I'm exactly where I am supposed to be. So for me, I feel pretty successful on that, and having a wonderful husband, a loving husband. So it's a huge part. So.
Yep.
So this is going to be a fun conversation. So I believe in a lot of kind of basic ideas. One of them is to always think opposite of the world. And so the world has a whole bunch of definitions around success. And so so mine might be slightly different, might be opposite in some ways. And there's a spiritual element to it, but to simplify it, it is to listen to the still small voice. And it's in a lot of ways, it's to obey the still small voice. There's a, call it conscience, call it Holy Spirit, call it still small voice, call it your gut, whatever it is. For all intents and purposes, there is something that goes on within us which isn't the voice that says do something stupid, right? It's like the opposite of the voice that does something stupid. And so success for me is being tuned in, hearing that voice, and then immediately, if I'm supposed to immediately activate, then it's immediately activating on the still small voice.
Mm-hmm. I like that. You're right. That is quite contrarian to what most
it's
people.
Opposite.
So there's some keywords I want to pick out there. So family, kind of living by purpose, and then also listening to the small voice is what success means. And I suppose in order for us to understand the people who are sitting in front of us today, we need to go back to the early Mike and Melissa. And so I want to get you guys to walk through your kind of early life and how you think your childhood shaped who you are today.
Interesting. I was born and raised in Brazil. My mother was a teacher. My dad used to work on a paper factory. And, but my great grandparents immigrated from Italy. So my family root is deep on, phenomenal values like honesty and integrity and hard work. And
Mm.
so and your yes is your yes, your no is your no. So that I feel like has shaped me. Then we moved to the States. My parents want to give me a better education. They couldn't afford it in Brazil. So they really sacrificed a lot for me and my brother to be here and to have an education. And that has taught me so much. And the idea that they're next door to me, and my boys, like my dad wakes up my son every day to go to school and never miss a
Wow.
soccer
Beautiful.
game and never, so they're so present in my life. It's such a way to teach me how to teach my boys, like to honor, your next generation. And even my Gabriel did a speech in high school, and where he looked at my parents and spoke in Portuguese in front of the whole peers
Wow.
to say how grateful he was that they moved here, and that they make sure that I wasn't the last one to speak Portuguese, because they spoke Portuguese with the boys their whole life. And
Wow.
for me, that brought me a lot of resilience to move to a country that I didn't know the language, I didn't know, what was next. Brought me a lot of faith. I mean, I had to trust a lot of the days because I didn't know what was going to be the next day. Or, people thought we're crazy moving here without, knowing. But it was no plan B, it was just we're moving and we're doing as a family. And
Mhm.
so every time I have a challenge in my life, I look it back and see God's
Mhm.
footprint all along in my
Mhm.
life, and things that I thought was impossible, his hands was there. So every time I'm questioned about it, okay, how about now? I'm like, but he did it already. You know,
Mhm.
he brought
Mhm.
me here. I met my husband. All of this beautiful life that I never even imagined that I will have one day. He gave it to me. So my work is to trust and move forward. But that's what I think it has shaped me.
Love that.
So I come from an
What about
entrepreneurial
you?
family. My mom's side, my mom grew up. So we have a thing here in the states that's it's a denomination of Amish. Are you guys familiar with the Amish at all? So
Yeah.
Mhm.
Very high
yeah.
level,
Uh-huh.
but yeah.
So basically, horse and buggies. So she grew up on a dairy farm, and she was Amish until she was 13, and then they left the Amish church, went to the Mennonite church, and they had cars then. My dad grew up in the Mennonite church, but what it is that the Mennonites and the Amish they're for all intents and purposes Swiss German. And so, in fact, my dad's side is from southern Germany, and my mom's side is from Switzerland. And so, what goes along with this? So that's the first part. The second part is then the southeast Pennsylvania. It's what they call Pennsylvania Dutch, which are Swiss Germans. And so there's a DNA and there's an expectation that you would work your tail off. And there's a very very cultural that you kind of play off the radar screen. You don't take credit. You give everyone else credit. There's a pretty strong spiritual element to it, usually. But to suffice it to say, so I grew up in this an entrepreneurial home where all we talked about at dinner was business. Now we talked about Jesus some night, but it was basically business. And so that was so there was certainly a lot of nurture around business as a kid. But then, because of this very strong Swiss German DNA, all I can tell you is that I don't know, I was probably 10, 11, 12, no, 11. And I basically started the entrepreneurial journey. I started with an acre of sweet corn, and then I took the church directory and I called because I knew everybody because my mom was very popular. And so I basically called everybody in the church directory and said, I will have sweet corn 10 days from now. Would you like for me to bring you 2 bushels? We will deliver it to your house, and this is the price. And so I then for a whole bunch of years, basically by the time I was in high school, kind of the midway through high school, I was farming 50 acres. I had 20 head of cattle. Basically started with
Wow.
nothing, and I let me go back when I was either 10 or 11. I think no, when I was 10, I rode in a tractor trailer, and I was like, I'm gonna be in the trucking business. I'm gonna do it. When I'm 18, I'm gonna buy my own truck, and then I'm gonna build a trucking business. And so, a little bit more on that is that I, if it had anything to do with an engine, I loved it. Like I bought my first go
Mm-hmm.
kart when I was 12, bought my first motorcycle when I was 13. If it had anything to do with an engine, I loved it.
Wow.
If it had anything to do with, I didn't have any of the language at the time, but if it had any of the, it's basically create, deliver value, right? Like, how can we create, deliver value? And for me, the heart was always there. The idea was, how can I create something? How can I sweet corn or hogs or cattle or corn or hay or whatever? How can I produce something that somebody sees a value? And then how can I build a relationship with the customer? And then how can I basically become their easy button? And again, all the language that I just shared, like this is the language we've learned later in life. But the heart was always there to. I'll use the language that I thought about then is like find a customer, come up with something, find a customer, sell it to them, knock the cover off the ball, make it so that they have such a phenomenal experience, give it to them at a very good price, increase the price if you can figure out how to create more value. Sorry, that's the new language. And I
Yep.
loved it. I
Yep.
loved it. And so the reason why I say this is that it's what I do now. I
Mm-hmm.
raced motocross when I was a kid, and now I race cars. I tried to come up with new ways to do stuff, like a better model when I was a kid around all this stuff. It's what I do now. So no kidding, I am living out my childhood
Yep.
literally every day.
Yeah, yeah. So that's awesome. I mean, we want to explore a bit more on that journey and details, but I'm so keen to understand this. I wanted to ask this: how did you guys met? Like, how did you meet each other? Tell us the
All right,
secrets.
here's the story. So, for good or for bad, this entrepreneurial bug was like always
Okay.
been an incredible driver. And so all through my 20s, I'm a pilot, flew airplanes all over the world, lived all over the world. And like that was the focus. And I
Yep.
was, I don't know, 31, 32. And a buddy of mine who at the time was a pastor of the same church that we were going to, we were both going to the same church.
All right.
I invited him to do some international travel with me. And I wanted to show him a bunch of stuff. He'd never been out of the States. And in my way of thinking, your worldview, you got to spend a lot of time outside of the States, particularly in developing countries, in order to have a sense of how the world works. And so we did that. We did this trip together. We were together for 5 days, took him all over the country, introduced him to a ton of friends. This is my pastor friend. And we're on the way home. So now we just had this 5 day international experience. And we're on the way home. And I'm like, Phil, like, dude, I have got to find a wife. Like, at the time I was 31.
You just realize.
No, seriously, no, what? But I mean, I wanted it, but you're always, it's priorities. And 31, 32. And I'm like, dude, I don't know what to do, but I've got to get on with it. No kidding. This is almost a quote. It feels like a quote. No problem. I have the girl for you, or the woman for you. And not many weeks after that, he introduced us. Not a few weeks after that, we went on our first date, and 11 months later, we were married.
And he
Wow.
Wow.
and he came back. He's like, Melissa, you need to meet this guy. And I was like, well, you don't understand. I just moved to this country. I'm like going to nursing school. I'm going to be the traveler nurse. I'm going to spend 6 months here, 6 months on the next whole, hospital. I have nothing to do with getting married right now. Just forget it. Not doing it. I was like, no, but you really need to meet this guy. And I'm like, fine, but there's nothing like I don't want to get married. That was my conclusion. Then when he introduced us at church, I walk and I saw Michael for the first time, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can read his soul. And it freaked me out. I was like, this is scary. Because I was like, I don't want to, if it was the kind of marriage that I saw on my family, I didn't want it. I wanted something different, but I also didn't believe in fairy tale. So I was like, there's no such a thing. You're gonna have a love at first sight and blah 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 blah. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna marry this guy. That was it.
The chemistry was there, right?
Yeah.
Straight away. And how old are you then? Like that was your first year in US?
I was here for a year. For a year.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think,
Fresh.
yeah, I think you were 21 or
I was
20.
20.
She was 21 or 22.
Yeah,
So we're
that's
10
it.
years difference.
Yeah.
So
Oh wow.
we were no, I was 32. She was 22.
All right. Yeah, yeah. And then that's your very first year in
That was
US,
it.
and wow.
No time to settle in. Straight into it.
And we've been married almost 25 years and wouldn't change a thing. So very
Amazing,
glad.
amazing story.
Mike, I want to go back to your introduction to aviation. I want to understand how that kind of passion started.
So so the context is that when I was 12, 13, 14, I did some work for my dad. But the aviation thing was always kind of his thing. And I just wanted to, go do the entrepreneurial thing. And so because it was kind of his thing, it was like, okay, fine, your thing, I'll go do my thing. Well, then, so I did a whole bunch of stuff in agriculture, and I became a dairy nutritionist, feed salesman, all this stuff. And when I was 20, so I dropped out of college. Went to one semester of college, and I just didn't have the patience for it. So dropped out. Then did all this other agribusiness stuff. So then I'm 20, and I owned my own truck, and I decided I was not going to do the feed sales thing anymore. And my dad and I are hanging out, and he says, he had a bunch of contracts. He said, I will give you for 6 weeks, for 6 week contract, I'll give you this daily rate, and I'll lease your truck from you. And so I'm like, fine, I'll do that for 6 weeks. I'm going to go start a business. Don't know what it is, but I'll go do that. No kidding. And we were flying airplanes, right? We were spraying what's called gypsy moth. We were spraying with airplanes like this, DC-3s and BCTs. Second day on the job, it's too windy to spray. And so the pilot who's there takes me flying. Just in a 172. Now remember this, no family members, right? This is just Caleb Blick. No kidding, hooked. I'm done. I'm like, oh my goodness, I had no idea. I have to learn how to be a pilot. Like, I'm going to do this. And so it was that's how, and then I was done. I was like, I don't care. I got all my ratings in a year. I did a whole ton of stuff. And that is the very circuitous path of how being a third generation aviation or a young man who was third generation aviation got hooked on aviation.
Yeah, that's an interesting story, right? You're pretty much born to a house with planes, right? And you didn't have that interest till 10 or 12, right? And can you take us through to your grandfather started this
Yeah.
business, right? Like,
Yeah.
can you take us through that journey, please?
Yeah. So 1936, my grandfather bought his first airplane. And he was airplane crazy. Everything to do with aviation. So prior to him buying his first airplane. No, around the time he bought his first airplane, he also had an auto body shop.
Okay.
And he started his auto body shop just simply as a way to generate money so he could go buy airplanes. He was in Southeast Pennsylvania. This is farm country. And so he just wanted to fly airplanes. He didn't want to be a crop duster. He just wanted to fly airplanes. So the very logical thing to do was modify buy an airplane, modify it, and then go be a crop duster. So he did 5 things. He purchased, when I say overhaul, he did heavy maintenance. He did heavy modifications, and then he flew the airplane and he maintained the airplane. Starting in 1936. That's our basic model today.
Oh, wow.
I've got a question on that. I know we're kind of skipping ahead a little
Fine.
bit, but how do you balance, now being third generation kind of owner operator of the business, how do you manage the balance between legacy and innovation? Because as you said, you're doing a very similar thing to what your granddad did, but how do you stay ahead of the curve and innovate while maintaining that legacy?
Yeah. So innovation is a really broad topic. I find no. So let me give you a couple pieces first. So grandfather buys his first airplane in 1936. My dad and my uncle literally grow up with airplanes in their backyard. My grandfather bought a farm and put in a grass strip. My dad and my uncle leave my grandfather's business in 1967. Leave 100%, like just enough money for their first semester of tuition here in a local college. They moved from Pennsylvania to Virginia, 200 miles away, and paid for their first month's rent and their first semester of college, and then started the business same week, 2 weeks later, as a way to put themselves through school. So that's how our business began. So technically, I'm third generation aviation, but so I'm third generation aviation, but technically I'm second gen our business.
Yep.
And it's very important because mom and dad basically they literally it was bootstrapped. I mean, they had nothing, right? It was hand to mouth for a couple of decades, which is what I grew up in. Now, let me talk about the innovation part. So I view it through the lens of, we could have a long conversation on this, but I view it through the lens of it's really a spirit of searching for those that have creativity around modifying an airplane, finding a new market, creating a better process, some better repeatable process. And so we have had challenges where when we've been in markets that were really mature and the team was much more focused on operating something mature, we've gone through this cycle where our mix changes dramatically, and some of our coworkers are able to make that leap from not a lot of innovation to innovation, and some can't. So I'm saying that's from a second generation. Our business has been around for 58 years. And so if you think about it from a 58-year standpoint, we have seasons of more innovation, we have seasons of less innovation, and it just so happens that literally right now we're going through a major season of refreshing our innovation.
And I suppose also on that kind of legacy point, do you feel a weight to kind of achieve and carry on that legacy?
Not so much. This is what's fascinating. Because I came to it not so there's a very important piece in here. So got hooked on by the bug. Like I bit by the bug to fly airplanes. And I made a decision 5 years later when I was 25. Oh, I don't know, when I was 26. I basically said, and this happened twice. When I was 22, I went and flew for an airline for a couple of years. And so when I was 22, and then again, actually when I was 27, there were 2 decision points. And the first, and both times it was similar, and that is I have a choice I am either going to do this with my dad or I'm going to do this on my own. And I'm going to be in the airplane. I was so smitten. I'm going to be in the airplane business. And in fact, I love the modified space, right? I love the creativity and love the market and love the geopolitics and all that stuff. And so it was much more when I was 22. I said, no, I'm supposed to hang out. I was listening to the inner voice. I'm supposed to hang out here.
Mm-hmm.
Then when I was 27, Dad and I basically created the company that we have now, and we brought in the company that he owned. So I feel it's different, right? I don't feel like
Mm-hmm.
I am. No, I don't. It's so much more intrinsic. What's deep within
Mm.
me is this incredibly strong drive to build an aviation business. And I view the business that he and I owned from 97 until he passed in 2020 as something that we built together. And I want to carry on what we built together. So it's a slight difference.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. And Melissa, we've been talking a lot about Mike, but
Oh
during
no,
that time frame
I
there,
love
you mentioned
this.
you
Every time I hear the story, I'm like, I can listen to this enough. So please.
you mentioned there you were starting nursing school.
Mhm.
Did you eventuate and like graduate from that? And kind of what was your path from after you met Mike?
I did not, because as I was, going to class and all of that, he then goes like, "Oh, I have a trade show in China. Would you come with me?" And then I'm like, okay. Then I went with him, but then I was like, I have to tell my teachers, hey, can I do like the next test? Next thing we know, like I have to travel. He wanted me to be part of his journey with him, and it started like early on. So I was like, okay, this is not gonna work. So I felt released from my nursing that I want to be the travel nurse. I'm a traveler now, but not the nurse. But I never finished, but I was very content in putting that on the back burner. And I felt like very strongly he wanted to take me on a journey with him. And I wanted to be
Yeah.
part of that journey, whatever that is. So we have not stopped ever since.
Melissa, you're working with Mike in the dynamic business.
So this is what a lot of these questions came when I went to OPM,
Yeah.
my because my parents have to work full time. I always say we have this agreement that my priority was going to be my voice. So my
Yep.
number one job, and whatever comes around that, then it's supporting Michael on his journey, but also my
Yep.
voice. I will not trade
Yep.
that for nothing. So I feel like that was my most important job. And
Yep.
so I have been a sounding board for him all along.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's even more helpful that I'm not here every day, because he comes home and then we, have all these discussions. And but I'm not clocking in every day. I'm part of the board, and
Yep.
knows everything that's going on. Lucas has 3 more years in high school, so who knows what's going to happen
Yep.
next. But right now, I'm very involved with some other stuff outside of Dynamic that helps Dynamic, um, that I'm doing it. And so that's how we are navigating through this. But
It's a team effort.
it's a team
Team
effort.
effort. Yeah, definitely.
I feel like Michael has a brilliant mind that uh, after going to OPM, I have understand a lot why he did certain decisions, and we can have a chat now in 10 minutes I'm good. Like I got it, and
Yeah.
which before it was a little bit like, what, trying needs a little bit more explanation for me to get there.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess you guys kind of integrate your business and family together. Like you're still sounding board for Mike, just for the business, and same time you're you're connecting that business and family together, right? So it just is that helping Mike, in terms of peace of mind and focus on what you do best?
Yeah, it's our partnership is that she's just extraordinary. I mean, she has so much wisdom. She has so much intuition. Most ideas I've really been working. By the way, you guys will like this. So I learned about a year ago that so this is for success, right? So what are the predictors of success? There was this study in Pennsylvania, the 23-year study with 320,000 folks. Bottom line was, well, no, sorry, I'm mixing stories.
Yeah,
We'll
that's
talk
fine.
about that one separate, but let me talk about the first one. So there's a professor at MIT who passed away 2 or 3 years ago, and his summation over the course of 40 years, 35 years, 40 years of teaching at MIT, his conclusion was that if I want to have like success, which we can talk more about this by the way, but if I want to have
Mm-hmm.
success, there's three things I should do. First one is I should improve the quality of my verbal communication. Second is improve the quality of my written communication. And third is improve the quality of my ideas. So I've not always been the best on the third one. Okay. I generate a lot of ideas, and let's just say that I have destroyed capital via pursuit of bad ideas. And so Melissa has been the one over the years who basically, when I come back and I'm like, hey, there's this new market, I think we should pursue it. And these are all the reasons why. And this is why there's pent up demand. And this is why it will work, dot, dot, dot. And basically, she says pretty much all of them that have failed, she says, nope, not going to work. She's pretty much, and I've had a lot of failures. And so the point is that what Melissa has done is showed up with her gifting in a way that is very loving and is a way that rapidly helps me think through how to solve a problem and then gives me the confidence to immediately act. So that's the first part. And now here's the second part, which is something that I was not foreseen whatsoever. And that is that Melissa has had, I always tend to have a 50-year, 100-year vision. And that's a lot of what my thinking is around how do we prepare properly. But I've not necessarily seen it fully through the lens of multiple generations. And Melissa has had a vision, which is basically let's do things in a way that, by the way, if the boys want to carry on, they'll carry on, right? We love them. We love them. We work at loving them unconditionally. And whatever emerges for them, we're going to fan the flame. Thus far, they've both expressed, a fair bit of interest in being involved in some way. Point is that Melissa has brought two things. Number one is she's brought this. By the way, now I'm realizing it's three. This is really long, guys. Forgive. So the first one is this sounding board where she has really helped me on ideas. The second
Yeah.
one is she's had a very stable vision for longevity of this resource that we have as a family for multiple generations. Um, and the third thing, which this is clearly not the right order, uh, but the third thing is that everyone loves her. I spent
Totally agree to it.
yeah, so like I spend a lot of time up here and I can
Yeah.
connect, like I work on connecting, But yeah, I'm telling you guys, we go anywhere, and she goes. She's literally she and I have traveled the world. I don't know how many countries we've been together, probably 30 or 40, and a lot of it business related. And I'm telling you, you hang out with, I don't care if it's a customer, a coworker, a community member, anyone who's connected. If I show up, I do all this, rational stuff. And that goes only so far. But man, when she shows up, people are like, wow, they're happy, they're emotionally filled. They're like, so there's a partnership that we have, which is pretty darn unique. And
Yeah.
it's something for which I have just an immense amount of gratitude.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. Knowing Melissa for last 2.5 years, and because she's such a genuine person, right? And then positivity is absolutely right. I tell you a good example. Very first year OPM, I've been tasked by my living group to do OPM challenge, which is the pitching comp. And I've been given a topic, I didn't have a clue. I was really stressed, struggling. And, Melissa wasn't even in my living group. And she was there making sure that I'm okay, keep coming and talking to me, motivating me, and supporting me. Even when I did the pitching comp, I was actually looking to her because I knew genuinely she was backing me up, right? I can see you, man. I can see you, Mike. What your relationship with Melissa and what it's awesome. So I can relate it to your
You
story.
know,
Yeah.
you know.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
And so, taking a bit of a left-hand turn, going back to business, I want to know, has it been challenging to kind of innovate in an industry that's very by the book? I feel like aviation is one of those things where it's very kind of
Yeah,
stagnant. We do things by the book, by the checklist.
yeah.
Can you walk us through
Yeah,
that?
yeah. So, flying airplanes, operating airplanes, there's essentially three sets of regulations. There is a special mission, and call it general aviation. It's called Farport 91. And then there is like the charter world for small airplanes. It's called Farport 135. And then there's the airline world, which is Farport 121. So 135, small airplanes charter, and the airline world, both of those are done under what's called the carriage of passengers or cargo for hire. This is really old language. The
Yeah.
sets of regulations that are around that world, passengers or cargo for hire, is a completely different set of regulations than what we operate under in what's called 91. There are no degrees of freedom in the charter world, in the carriage for hire. There's a ton of degrees of freedom in the 91 world. We've done it. We've done them all, right? We've by the way, we've entered into 65 markets over the course of the last 58 years.
Wow.
Most of them since 1990. And so I got a date, right? I have data on all this. I have data on what works. I have data on what doesn't work. I have data on degrees of freedom, all this stuff. And so we've started a couple 135 certificates, and then if there's anyone who's watching this who's thinking about starting an airline, please talk to me before you decide to start your airline. So we started a charter airline with MD-80s and 767s about 15 years ago. So we wrote 10,000 pages of 27 manuals, 10,000
Wow.
pages of basically procedures in order to operate this airline. I had no idea when I started the airline that I need to be in the 91 space where you can make mods to airplanes and you can create very unique
Yeah.
concepts of operations where you don't have 10,000 pages which are telling you how to do your job. Suffice it to say that we sold the airline after we lost,
Uh-huh.
unbelievable amount of money. And when I came through, so the lessons learned from that, you're really spot on. The lessons learned from that were that our team here, me personally, us, we need to be in the 91 business where we have degrees of freedom to create a ton of value. And we have to stay out of that transportation world, which is no creativity. It's only regulation. And ultimately, it all gets commoditized and you can't create value.
Mm-hmm. So, in simple terms, Mike, your business is hiring aeroplanes?
So, our business is everything is modified. So, our mission is to protect and defend the world with modified airplanes.
So we buy the airplanes and then we modify the airplanes here.
And then we fly them on a
Can you-
mission.
Fly them on a mission,
Right.
whether special mission.
So I'll give you
for our listeners, could you give an
yes, of
example?
course. So we work in, so think of it kind of as a matrix. We work in the defense space and we work in the civil space. This is all government. No, I mean, basically all government. Most of the dollars originate government. And then we do data collection and we do disperse. So we either hoover up data with sensors on the airplanes or we drop something out of the airplane. Specific examples. In the defense space, it's what's called ISR. It's the gathering intelligence via surveillance or reconnaissance, where we will be in a combat in a theater in theater, and we are like counter IED. If you remember the Hurt Locker, if you remember all the improvised explosive devices, we were in that market for 20 years. We saved on the order of about, we think 25, you don't really know, but we saved on the order of 25,000 lives by nominating IEDs, and then the IEDs were taken off the battlefield before they dismembered a warfighter, right?
Yeah.
So that's one example. Another example is maritime patrol aircraft. You guys are in Australia, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always activity in the littoral or in the maritime zone. There's usually illegal activity. And so, for instance, in Australia, there's a thing called Coastal Watch. And there's a bunch of Dash 8s that fly basically doing surveillance for any form of illegal activity. So we do a whole ton of that. We spray for mosquitoes. So both of those are types of hoovering up data, right? Both of those are sensors that we're collecting data. Stuff that we drop out of airplanes. We spray for mosquitoes. We have King Airs. A King Air is a multi-engine turboprop airplane, and we go and we spray for mosquitoes. We're at 100 meters with night vision goggles at night. I've done a ton of this. Okay. We release, no kidding, we release sterile flies, sterile insects. Wow. We release sterile Mediterranean fruit flies. We release sterile screwworms.
Amazing.
And so right now, actively, we're in about 5 markets for data collection and 6 markets for disperse. One more disperse that you guys will like. We have a fleet of 737s, which are tanked for oil spill response. So if there's an oil spill, 4,100 gallons, 4,175 gallons in the airplane. If there's an oil spill, we will load it with an emulsifier, which is basically soap, and we will go out and we will spray the oil spill. On and on and on and on.
How big your fleet is? Like how many airplanes?
About 140 airplanes.
Wow. That's impressive. And I suppose after it'd be nearly 20 years at the helm of Dynamic, what are some of the key lessons that you've learned? Whether it's just about entrepreneurship or leading people or building culture, what are some of the key lessons?
Yeah. Well, number one is it's never as good as it seems, and it's never as bad as it seems. A next one would be good news, an all truth all the time. Next one would be good news fast, bad news faster. Next one would be focus on the inputs and trust for the outputs. In other words, the input is create and deliver value for your customer every day, and the output is if it's done right, you'll be able to capture value. The next one is and capture value usually via pricing or via essentially net dollars. The next one is take the long view. It's so much easier because it's hard to make the right decisions if you don't have the long view. So then, as it has to do with harvesting value, you could either say capturing value or harvesting value. The next one then is one must make a decision. What are they going to do with that monetary capturing of value? And what we do, and again, this goes back to the Germanic, to the farming, right? To the Amish and the Mennonites. Every dollar goes back into the business, and it's easy to do that if that's what we've been doing for 100 years, right? So don't take money out of the business. It's okay to be land rich and cash poor. So let's see what else. Okay, those are all concepts. Really, the single biggest, not the single, the those are concepts of how to run the business. But the issue is, I don't look at the end of the day, it's all about people, right? And everybody says, but really, at the end of the day, it's all about people. And so when I talk about creating and delivering value for our customers every day, there's a that's that which we put that first because ultimately they pay the bills. But our purpose at Dynamic, and again, this is opposite of the world. Our purpose at Dynamic, you guys are not going to believe this. Love God and love your neighbor.
Who writes that?
Nuts, right? And so, love God and love your neighbor is actually ahead of create and deliver value for the customer every day, for every customer every day. So, if love God and love your neighbor is actually what your purpose is, then it means that if I am with a customer, I'm focusing on creating and delivering value for them. If I'm with a coworker, I'm focused on creating value and delivering value for them. So all these ideas around creating and delivering value for the customer, they're the external. There's internal customers, which are our coworkers. Now, why do I say this? That's just a bunch of Harvard language for people. It's all this stuff we do. It's and again we use this language all the time, right? It's channel partners. So when we were in the counter IED business, we were working for the Department of Defense. Well, we would fight all day long with anybody in the channel because we were saving war fighters' lives. So people, right? We're saving lives. Well, not only that, but think farther than that. We're not only are we saving the warfighter's life, but we're having a generational impact on his family because he or she, mainly because he's going to come home. He's going to care for his bride. He's going to care for his kids. He's going to care for his community. And so there's this people part all through the channel in what we do on the customer side. But then the people part is it's our coworkers. We call them employees, but I think of we're just all co-laboring. We're working together.
Yep.
And so then the question is what are we doing today? What are we doing today to serve our people? And what are we doing today to care for them in a way and give them opportunities and encourage them to grow and encourage them to love well and to basically love their neighbor, love their family. And when we do that, to the degree that any of those seeds get sown and germinate, my goodness, the impact on the world. Like that's what all this is about. So I say this in like two parts, Dylan. Like what have I learned? Well, I've learned that all of this structure, all of this systems, like all that way of thinking, all truth all the time, all that stuff really, 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 really matters. But at the end of the day, it's not more important than the people. The people. This is all about the people.
I love that. I like. Honestly, that's such a good interpretation of something I'd never even thought about. Know thy neighbor. You hear it, but from that's like a business aspect of it as well. It's maybe that was the first ever business quote out there. Know thy neighbor. But yeah, I really like that take on things.
Yeah. So by the way, you should know this. So our purpose being love God and love your neighbor. That wasn't our purpose always, right? I've had purposes in my life where my purpose is to build businesses, or my purpose is to build an airline, or my purpose is to operate X number of airplanes, or have X number, whatever. Well, the problem is then whenever I've done that, then I put that ahead of the relationship. And when I do that, then I end up with a trail of broken relationships behind me.
Yeah.
And that's what we do in business.
Relationships first.
We do this. I mean, and I'm not beating myself up. I'm saying a lot of us do that. And so my conclusion was ultimately the last couple of years was, look, I'm just tired of living life this way. I don't want to put anything ahead of loving God and loving others. And that's why it emerged this way.
It's like Stephen Covey says, the emotional bank account, right?
Yeah.
Well,
And you're adding to the emotional bank account with every relationship that you have, working on that, and then that down the line will provide value.
But the question is am I doing it to provide value, or am I doing it from a place in my heart that says, I am here to serve you. I'm here to serve my bride. I've been working a little bit too hard lately, and my bride's like, seriously, dude, I'm actually here. So I'm not suggesting that I live this out like the way as good as I should, but the point is where's my heart?
Yeah.
My heart is to serve my bride. My heart is to care for my bride. And by the way, Cubby, I believe this. I met a bunch of friends of his back in the day, and he was a man. He absolutely a man with a good heart, a man with a beautiful heart. And he was on his own journey of trying to figure out how to do this in a way where he cares for others, but he also communicates. He also teaches all of these deep truths that he discovered over time.
Yeah. Awesome.
I want to move to another thing that you're quite passionate about, which is the first Air Force One.
Well, yeah.
I saw it and I was immediately piqued.
I told Dylan as well that story. So
it seems like such an incredible project, and I just want to hear from you what it's about and how you even got into it in the first place.
Well, first of all, you guys have an open invitation to come and see her anytime.
I will be taking you up on that. Don't you worry.
We'd love to. We'd love to. One day we will.
So this is a fascinating subject. My dad was one of the most enthusiastic aviation enthusiasts that I've ever met.
True.
I love business. I love airplanes, but I love business. Whatever you see me talking about business and all this stuff we just talked about, he would talk to you, and he and I had this shared passion around what we call round engine airplanes, right? Beech-18s, DC-3s, all these airplanes. We call them warbirds, the ones that actually fought in the war. And but his passion and his enthusiasm for all things aviation. I've not met many people. I know a lot of people in the airplane space. I've not met many that had it as deeply. Right, his pulse was bam, bam, bam. So in the mid 2010s, he was just becoming less involved in the business. And if you knew him, you would know that his energy was like a 95 or 100, right? He had to have something. So we had a DC-3 that he did a world-class restoration on. And he was kind of getting done. And he and I, from various friends, got this email of a YouTube video that the first Air Force One was going to get cut up because they couldn't afford the storage anymore.
And the museum, the Smithsonian didn't want it.
Smithsonian they don't have money. They couldn't, there was no vision for that there. And so Dad, long story short, so this story, the first Air Force One story, the airplane, this is all my dad. Very important to know this. This is my dad's. Look, he's got a lot of stuff around legacy, but when we finish the full restoration of the airplane, and the airplane is on tour and is inspiring there's basically 9 groups of people we want to inspire, 0 to 10, 10 to 20, so on and so forth. There's a value prop, and sorry for all the business language, but there's a value proposition. Let me get to the heart. This airplane touches the heart of people
Yeah.
at every age level. And so what's going to be so unique about Dad's legacy is when this airplane is on tour in the US, we want to go to Europe every other summer, and you are at an air show. And by the way, the beauty of this airplane is it is the lines of the Connie, the 749 Connies, the short Connie constellation, they're timeless. We were 2 years ago. 2 years ago, we have a friend who restored a 749 Connie, and we were at Oshkosh. Oshkosh is the largest air show in the world. 100,000 people throughout the week, and we were the Rod Lewis's Connie was turning final. I've been going to Oshkosh since I was 8 years old, and I've been
Wow.
there. I've been there. I don't know, probably 40 times. I'm not 48, by the way, so I missed some. So Rod Lewis's 749, the Bhutan, turns final. No kidding. I have been to countless Oshkosh air shows. I have never, you can hear a pin drop. I have never felt what I felt, and I've never observed this frequency amongst the people of this to utter awe of the airplane. Here's the point. What's going to happen is when the airplane's done and it's on the air show circuit and it's turning final, and then we're allowing, to 8-year-olds and 15-year-olds and the parents and the grandparents and the great grandparents to walk on that airplane and to sit where Eisenhower sat. My dad's legacy is going to be it's just going to be remarkable what his legacy is going to do. Long-winded way to say, I show up much more around the airplane and he and I were in agreement on this. He wanted to build the airplane. He wanted me to figure out what we were going to do with it. And we were in agreement 100% from the moment he said he thinks he needs to build it. We were in agreement on this. And so my heart around the airplane and my pulse around the airplane, my passion around the airplane is inspire, just inspire. And when you and when the 4 of us or anybody that's on this podcast, when we have the hair stand up or when we have the chills go, and there's something that stirs within us, it changes us, and it gives us a vision of something. It gives us a vision. It grounds us, right? There's something when we're inspired. There's something that is within us already that's dormant and that needs light, and it needs to be opened up. And the probability of this, what I'm excited about, the probability of this airplane doing that over and over and over and over and over again, with all kinds of friends around the world, is over the top.
The gift that keeps on giving. I love that. And I want to get some insight from you, being very critical in the aviation industry. Something that's of interest to me is kind of the future, right? So I want to get your take. Where do you think the future of aviation is going? Is it sustainable fuels? Is it electric aircraft? What, from someone who's in the industry, where is the future for aviation?
All right. So I could go all kinds of directions with this. I will, if you want me to give you a really quick overview, I can. Let me give you a quick overview. And then if you've got any specifics, we can go into it. So, the history of the world is that any form of energy that's created ultimately creates demand for which there's not enough energy. For all intents and purposes, any form of energy, this is my opinion, any form of energy that is generated will be used. So it will continue to be the majority of the energy that's used to propel airplanes will be what we call Jet A, right? It's kind of like diesel, but it's purified. That will be a huge component of aviation for the next 50 years. And I would actually argue 100 years, and I could explain all the reasons why, but suffice it to say that in 2018, we were all going to be driving electric cars by 2022, and they would all be self-driving by 2024. So just apply that to any other form of energy for airplanes. It's just not going to happen near as fast as we think. So that's the first one. And so, yes, will biofuels be a huge a component? Yes, they will. What's the percentage? I don't know. It's really complicated. No, I shouldn't. It's very cost. It's incredibly capital intensive. And so you've got it's a huge trade-off. Certainly the cheapest is just carbon. So that's the first one. Next, I have a very good friend, a couple good friends, actually more than one, a couple good friends in the electric space.
Yeah.
One friend who he's like the Bill Boeing of this energy of this generation. What he and his team are doing is projected out. There will be. So I'm not an engineer. So there's certain. Well, let me simplify it. Yes, electric. 20 years from now, my head's not deep enough into it. My head's really in our business right now. My head's not deep enough into it to be able to tell you probabilities with regards to how many 9-seat and less airplanes will be electric. I would say the probability 20 years, no, 50 years from now, the probability of it either being electric or it being, what do you call it when it's the mix? Hybrid. So the probability 50 years from now of most power plants being propelled by either electric or some form of hybrid energy is very high. Let me give you the next one. Now here's what's fascinating, utterly fascinating. There's a blended wing. The blended wing technology has been around for 50 years, Northrop 60, 70 years. And then NASA did a pretty big kick on the flywheel 30 years ago. And now there's a guy that's really made a lot of progress with it. If I were going to bet on what is the single biggest potential game changer in commercial aviation, not small airplanes, in commercial aviation, it's the blended wing. The issue around the blended wing, and this goes back to our innovation conversation, and that is there's always these forces around keeping it static. Don't move my cheese. Mm-hmm. And so what I don't know is what I don't. By the way, this explains the electric business. This explains the a little bit on the biofuels, not so much, but the regulatory, and this goes back to earlier conversation about the 121 world. Everything is built to not improve, not to innovate. It's all built to stay the same, and it's all around the idea of safety. The point is that the probability of the blended wing, there's a lot of forces against it, but there's a lot of forces for it. And I think the blended wing has huge potential. Let me see what else. Oh, unmanned. Fascinating subject. I'm glad you asked.
Unmanned planes.
Unmanned. So we've been working on this for a long time. And we have some partners that are really smart in the space. Ultimately, I think driving cars without people is hard enough as it has to do with someone walking in front of a car. Flying airplanes, actually, in the airspace, it's easy. It's simple. And no kidding, because you're not driving around corners. The takeoff, all of the algorithms around the takeoff and all your algorithms around the landing, they're not particularly hard to do. The issue is the argument was for 5 or 6 years that the next gen, the folks that get used to riding around without a driver in the taxi, that then they'll be okay with riding around in an airplane without somebody up front.
That's the problem.
Here's what I believe will happen. I believe that. By the way, this is not again, because I'm not been thinking about this deeply, I can't tell you what's been going on in the last 6 months in this space. But or even a year ago, I would have told you, I bought into the idea a year ago that we are on a path whereby the co-pilot, and I still believe this, where the co-pilot will be replaced with a AI, not an AI, robot, but basically an AI, something, an algorithm and a control system which will allow the airplane to fully function without a
Yep.
person in the cockpit. But because of the mental issue with having to have a pilot up front, I think where we will go is there'll be, for the next 50 years, I think there'll be at least one pilot.
Yeah.
But I think I would say that in the next 10 to 15 years, there'll be some way we'll get to a tipping point. It's probably more like 20 years to get to a tipping point where we are now no longer required to have two people up front.
Yep.
That's really fascinating. So, Mike and Melissa, so what's the plan for you guys?
What's next?
What's next for you?
What's next?
You want to go first? You want me to go first?
Well, you can go first.
So, our market's changed dramatically. The world is changing. A lot of the way that we serve governments, the requirements are increasing in Europe. Our pipeline's growing there. It's going to increase in Asia Pacific, and so from a business standpoint, it is really figure out how to build the business in a way where we have phenomenal people basically serving our customers, where our team takes more responsibility and I have less responsibility. And then, as it has to do with, because I'm still young and Melissa's still young, and so a little farther around the corner, the question is how do we? We're going. It's a much bigger issue for Melissa than for me. We're going to be empty nesters in 2 years, and so what's been going on in my mind is how do I serve? How do I care for Melissa as we go through this empty nesting process? And then what does it mean from a standpoint of what do we do together so that I'm properly caring for her? That's what's on my mind. You go.
Well, I think it's like, I feel like every month something comes up and it's different than we even thought was going to be. Something in the pipeline becomes really goes up and becomes reality. And I feel like we have a team right now. We built a team that we're on the last big change with a CFO that we could not have asked for a better team. So I'm just very confident. And again, because it's very important to me if the boys want to lead this business, that we are thinking of all of this and really being good stewards of what we have. So I think there's a concern now of, we want to do better for them and leave this better for them if they chose to do it. Otherwise, we both love to travel together and encourage, our people on the bases and all of that. I'm such a people person, and for me, it gives me such a just sitting with the mechanics in Abu Dhabi or whatever. It's just I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a great team, and I just get so pumped up, and sharing stories and being grateful. Like I have so much gratitude for where we are, but both Michael and I have a huge sense of giving back. Also, to the more you give, the more you expect to give. So I feel like that is a huge part of our life.
Do you want your children to get involved in this business? Or that's their choice?
That's 100% their choice. 100%. We did not. We always, and I pray this with them every morning. I say, that God use the gifts that each one of you have, and that you'll be able to really have fun with whatever you choose to be. And so it's completely, there's not even once we have said, hey, are you thinking about this? Are you think absolutely, like I wanted him to be good human beings, whatever they decide to be. And that for me, then I feel like my job is done. Like,
Yeah, but I will say this. If you hang out with them and listen to them, it certainly appears that they have a vision for business and how they're gonna
That's amazing.
run the business and how they're gonna grow the business. They talk about that a lot.
that is true.
That's good.
That,
Succession plan.
That's good. I guess they were listening to you, and then they developed that passion to grow that business. It's amazing. And talking about passion, Mike, you done OPM, owner president management Harvard twice. Is there any chance that you'll do a third time?
that's why yeah.
What's the reason that I think I asked that question before, but I wanted to know why you did it twice.
Yeah, so I did it the first time, and then we as a business, we grew 1,400% over 10 years. And
Wow.
we had, we were so extraordinarily blessed. And then I lost my way. I began to believe that that I had something to do with it, and that, then I made some wrong decisions, and the whole what we built as a result of OPM the first time, a lot of it started to fall away, and I'm like, this is wrong. I've got to figure out how to solve this, and so that's why I went the second time.
Amazing.
And looking back on both of your journeys, do you feel successful?
I do. I still like I have a lot to learn. Like, I mean, being at Harvard with everybody, like I think I was the only one who didn't go to the business every day. And and to that extent, I have learned so much from my peers and all of that. And I still, and from our own business. And Michael even told me, you're going to learn more about our business than anything else, too. And I'm like, I had all these questions coming back, and I have all this, it's so true. I feel like I feel successful, like with my kids, with my husband, with my family being next to me. But the business, like saving lives every time we do it, for me, it's like there's nothing like it, and nothing like it. So that's mine.
So
What about you,
yeah,
Mike?
So the way we started the conversation was that it's listening to the inner voice, right? Do I listen to the inner
Yep.
voice, and then do I activate immediately on the inner voice? And so spiritually, I I for me, that's more the Holy Spirit, right? Everybody has a different way of naming it. And
Yep.
so to the degree that I have the ears to hear and then act immediately on whatever the Holy Spirit guides me to do, then yes, I have success. I'm not going to tell you how well I do at that. I'm not going to tell you how often I don't activate immediately. But that's my measure for success. Whether I feel successful or not, this is actually a fascinating subject, in that I don't show up in the world wanting to be successful. I show up in the world with this never-ending drive to stay true to self, and to listen, and to follow this intrinsic voice or this intrinsic motivation. And that's how I want to live my life. And if ultimately the world says, well, look, that guy looks successful, fine,
Yep.
so be it. But I'm not driven by that at all.
I like that.
Well, Mike and Melissa, we could actually talk to you guys probably for hours and hours and hours, but I'm conscious of your time. And throughout our conversation, I've been jotting down some key ingredients which I think have been crucial to building your successful lives. And I'd like to share them with you. The first one I think stood out the most to me is you're both incredibly family driven. And you could just tell in the emotion when you were talking about family, it is one of the main reasons that you guys do what you do. And you'll want to be close to your family. You clearly have an incredible relationship between you and also your kids and your parents. And I think that gives you a foundation to go off and do the things that you do so that you can build a better life and carry on this family legacy. The second one is this concept of like value creation first, like always driving towards value and understanding the people that you're around, understanding your customers so that you can really push value for them and doing something specifically for them. And I think that's something really true. You know, a lot of founders go out there, build something and then look for a customer. You're very much pushing for drive value first. And I think that's a key part of your success. The next one is authenticity. I mean, both of you, you know, you don't try and be someone else. You're very much portraying who you are and you accept your flaws and are working towards, you know, trying to be who you intrinsically want to be. And I think that's really powerful. The next one is positivity and passion. I mean, Mike, whether it was you talking about, you know, the future of aviation, you could tell there was passion there. And Melissa, you haven't stopped smiling this entire conversation. You know, there is such a great positive energy, and it makes it easy for people to connect with you as well. You know, it's so easy to have these conversations when people love what they're talking about and they're smiling through the screens. It makes it so much easier. And I think that helps also just in connections and relationships in the real world as well. And then finally, it's curiosity. You're both obviously very avid learners, and that stems from this curiosity to understand other people and also like knowledge as well. Curiosity towards what's going to be in the future and how to develop your business, how to develop yourselves and your family. So thank you so much for this conversation. It's been incredibly insightful.
And also the one key reason for your success is two of you, right? Your partnership and your love and compassion, like, you know, to each other. And that's really, I mean, you agree to that, right? Like, you know, I mean, you have different strengths and then, but together your synergies, like it's amazing, right? So that's definitely a core factor for your success. And it's so much pleasure having that conversation with you, Mike and Melissa. You know, I mean, we wanna take that offer one day. We wanna come over and see all these airplanes. You know, I grew up wanted to become a pilot, and my parents didn't allow me to be a pilot because we were at a war in where I grew up in Sri Lanka, and a few of my friends got killed. So I didn't have that option. So I still have that
love of aviation,
and I definitely want to make that trip over to you guys. And and thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Mike, and obrigado, Melissa. It's been a wonderful conversation.
So let me say a couple of things before we sign off. So first, Jim and Dylan, for both of you, from Melissa and I, from our entire family and the entire Dynamic Aviation family, we now officially invite you both to come to Bridgewater, Virginia, to see some cool airplanes, hang out with us, and it now is an open invitation. So that's number one. Number two, Jam, you have so much for which to be grateful, but really proud of Dylan. Dylan, your spirit, your preparation, your deep listening, and your embodiment of this conversation is unique. You are very gifted in this. And that's the second thing. Then but this is the most special part. It's fascinating whenever any of us or anybody listening to this podcast, when we walk into a room, we immediately feel something. And that energy that we feel is either something that, or it's like something very positive. And literally the moment that Melissa and I, when you all came up, the energy, the love that you have for one another,
Exactly.
and the energy that you conveyed to us when you see us smiling, much of it is the fact that we're just simply responding to your energy, which is beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the
A
kind
huge
words, Mike
fan
and
of your
Melissa.
Thank you
It
family.
means a
for that
lot.
kind words.
Huge.
And by the way, we have to bring our dynamic team as well. So we are also dynamic. I don't know you are aware. My company called Be Dynamic, right? So
And she told me this 3
yeah, yeah. So dynamic actually Dylan, Naomi, Michelle. So the first letters. That's how our dynamic come from.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. That is extra special.
Something we have in common. Yeah.
cool.
Yes.
That's
Family.
really cool. Yeah,
Family.
so you have a very
And
dynamic
yeah,
family.
Exactly.
we do, and we openly invite you guys when you're on your empty nesters and you're traveling. Come over to Sydney. We'd love to have
That.
you over here.
Love that.
Thank you.
Thank you, friends.
Thank you. Well, we will tuck that one away.
Yes. Thank you.
And with
Having
that,
us to-
thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. If you found it inspirational and insightful, it would be a massive favor if you could subscribe or follow us on whichever channel you're listening to this on right now. And you can see all of our inspirational conversations over on our website, thequestforsuccesspodcast.com. And with that, we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.